Most people waste 30 years of their lives chasing things that don't actually matter. I know that sounds harsh, but here's what's shocking. Researchers who study centenarians found that people who live past 100 have 3 massive regrets that most of us are making right now. These aren't the regrets you'd expect about health or money. They're about time itself and how we spend it. Today, I'm sharing the 3 secrets that separate people who live with purpose from those who wake up at 65 wondering where their life went. If you're under 40, this could save you decades of wasted effort. If you're older, it's not too late to course correct. Let's dive in. Secret 1. They stopped chasing other people's dreams. Here's the thing that shocked me most about centenarian interviews. Almost none of them talked about following the traditional path. Instead, they all had stories about the moment. They stopped living for other people's approval and started living for themselves. Take Jeanne Calment, who lived to 122. She didn't follow her family's expectation to be a quiet housewife. She took up fencing at 85, rode a bicycle until she was 100, and famously said she never worried about what others thought of her choices. Or consider Frank Lloyd Wright, who was still designing revolutionary buildings in his 90s because he never let architectural critics box him into conventional styles. The conformity trap is real, and it steals decades. Think about it. How many people spend their 20s and 30s climbing ladders they never wanted to climb? They become lawyers because their parents expected it. Stay in relationships that feel safe but empty, or build businesses in industries they hate, because that's what successful people are supposed to do. The compound effect of this choice is massive. When you live authentically, every year builds on the last. Your skills, relationships, and opportunities align with who you actually are. But when you live for approval, you're constantly starting over, switching between versions of yourself that never quite fit. Here's how to know if you're living someone else's dream right now. Ask yourself these questions. When you imagine your ideal day, does it look anything like your current life? Do you find yourself saying, I should want this instead of I want this? Are your biggest goals things you genuinely care about, or things that would impress other people? If those questions made you uncomfortable, you're not alone. Most people realize they've been following scripts written by their families, their culture, or their social media feeds. Here's how to course correct without burning bridges. Start small. You don't need to quit your job tomorrow. Begin by identifying one area where you can make a choice based on what you actually want, not what others expect. Maybe it's the hobby you pursue, the books you read, or how you spend your weekends. Then use what I call the deathbed test for bigger decisions. When you're 90 years old, looking back on this choice, will you regret taking the safe path or the authentic one? Centenarians consistently say they regret the chances they didn't take, not the ones they did. The beautiful thing about this secret is that it gets easier with practice. Every authentic choice makes the next one clearer. You start attracting people and opportunities that align with who you really are, instead of constantly trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. Remember, other people's opinions of your life are none of your business. The only person who has to live with your choices every single day is you. Secret 2. They prioritized relationships over achievements. Here's what's fascinating about centenarian interviews. When researchers ask them about their proudest moments, they almost never mention career accomplishments. They don't talk about the promotion they got at 45 or the business they built. Instead, they light up talking about their grandchildren, the friendships that lasted decades, or the time they helped a neighbor through a crisis. This isn't because they weren't successful. Many centenarians built incredible careers and achieved remarkable things, but time gave them perspective on what actually matters when everything else fades away. Let me give you a relationship audit that will reveal where your time actually goes. For the next week, track how many hours you spend on achievement-focused activities versus relationship-focused ones. Include work, side projects, and personal development in the achievement column. Put family time, friend conversations, and community involvement in the relationship column. Most people are shocked by the ratio. Achievement addiction is real, and it destroys the connections that matter most. We tell ourselves we're working hard for our families, but then we're too exhausted to actually be present with them. We postpone dinner with friends because we have deadlines, then wonder why our social circle shrinks every year. I met a 98-year-old named Margaret who told me about choosing to leave work early every day to pick up her kids from school. Her colleagues thought she wasn't serious about her career. Decades later, her children remember those car rides home as some of their most meaningful conversations. Meanwhile, the colleagues who stayed late for every meeting, their kids barely speak to them. Here's the thing about relationships versus achievements. Achievements are finite, but relationships compound. That project you're obsessing over will be forgotten in 5 years. But the trust you build with someone today can last a lifetime. The 80-20 rule works perfectly here. 80% of your relationship satisfaction comes from 20% of your connections. Instead of trying to network with everyone, identify the handful of relationships that truly matter and invest deeply in those. This doesn't mean abandoning your goals. It means being strategic about when and how you pursue them. Some simple daily practices can strengthen bonds while you're still chasing your dreams. Send one meaningful text each day to someone you care about. Have one conversation each week that goes deeper than surface level. Choose presence over productivity when you're with the people who matter. The centenarians who lived with the least regret understood something we're just learning. Success without connection is just sophisticated loneliness. Your achievements might impress strangers, but your relationships sustain you through everything else. Secret 3. They embraced good enough and stopped perfectionism. The perfectionism paralysis that prevents action and steals joy is something almost every centenarian learned to overcome. They figured out that waiting for perfect conditions meant missing out on actual living. Take Colonel Sanders, who didn't start KFC until he was 62. His chicken recipe wasn't perfect. He knew that, but it was good enough to share, and that willingness to act on good enough built a global empire. Compare that to the thousands of people who spend decades perfecting business plans that never see the light of day. Centenarians learned to ship imperfect work and live imperfect lives because they understood the opportunity cost of waiting. Every day you spend perfecting something is a day you're not experiencing the results, learning from feedback, or moving on to the next adventure. Here's a story that illustrates this perfectly. A 101-year-old artist named Rose told me she spent her 30s trying to paint the perfect landscape. She'd start paintings and abandon them because they didn't match her vision. At 45, she decided to finish every painting, regardless of how it turned out. The imperfect paintings she completed taught her more in 1 year than the perfect paintings she abandoned taught her in a decade. The 70% rule can transform your decision-making. When you're 70% sure about something, key, you'll learn the remaining 30% through experience. And that knowledge will be more valuable than anything you could have figured out through planning. Perfectionism is actually selfish when you think about it. It's saying that your need for everything to be flawless is more important than actually helping people or contributing something meaningful to the world. The people who could benefit from your imperfect work right now don't get that opportunity because you're waiting for some impossible standard. Here's how to break the cycle. Set deadlines that force you to ship before you're ready. Share work when it's 80% done and ask for feedback. Remember that done is better than perfect, and perfect is the enemy of good. So there you have it. The 3 secrets that separate those who live with purpose from those who waste decades. Stop chasing other people's dreams and live authentically. Prioritize relationships over achievements because connections compound while accomplishments fade. Embrace good enough and ship your imperfect work to the world. Here's your challenge. Pick one of these secrets and implement it this week. Maybe it's having an honest conversation about what you actually want, scheduling time with someone who matters, or finally sharing that project you've been perfecting forever. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more content about optimizing your life before it's too late. As one 103-year-old told me, time isn't money, it's everything. Don't waste yours.